Hey there, Eric with you. Thank you for joining me. I just wanted to speak to you today regarding something called the microbiome and how that relates to children's health. The microbiome is actually living organisms. It's bacteria and it resides in our gut, in our stomach. All this bacteria, they estimate there's 100 trillion different living organisms, different bacteria that is in our gut. And that is actually 10 times more than the amount of cells we have in our body. So if you compare those numbers, we are actually more bacteria than we are of anything else. So that's something to think about. But this microbiome also, interestingly, contains 90% of our genetic material. So that's an amazing number too. So I think you can see how important this microbiome is. If 90% of our genetic material lies in this bacteria. And if you can think of the microbiome as a rainforest, and there has to be a perfect balance in there, and that it makes it a harmony. It's harmonious when there's a nice consistent balance. However, if an imbalance occurs, then that can throw everything off. It can ensue so many problems, and that's really the crux of what I wanted to speak to you about. This microbiome is influenced by what we eat. So if we're eating a poor diet, it is going to cause many different problems in that bacteria in our gut. And one of the main culprits that can do that is sugar. Sugar causes a high degree of inflammation in our microbiome. So as children consume more and more sugar, it's going to cause inflammation in this system, in the bacteria. And if that continues, if that persists, and we know that today children are eating so much sugar on a consistent basis, what happens in our microbiome and our bacteria is it starts to escape our gut. There's a small lining here, very thin lining that contains our microbiome. But if that inflammation persists, it starts to seep through that thin lining. The bacteria starts to escape. And when that occurs, our immune system does not recognize these living organisms. The immune system senses the bacteria that is seeping out as a foreign enemy, and our immune system starts to attack it. And what happens is even more inflammation here. As the immune system attacks the bacteria, it increases the inflammation, and this can go throughout our body. So the inflammation can travel up to our brain, it can travel into our heart, it can travel kidneys, liver, it can be systemic. It can affect many different areas of our body with chronic inflammation. And this can lead to very debilitating conditions, to diseases. And it may not be apparent when you're a child, although many statistics now, if we understand what is happening to children's health, it seems that the microbiome you can already see signs of this chronic inflammation in children. But even if it's not in children, later in life, this is going to cause a problem. And again, the main culprit of causing this chronic inflammation in our microbiome, in that bacteria, is sugar. Sugar that kids are eating. I think the most recent statistic I read is our kids are eating 66 pounds of added sugar a year. 66 pounds. And again, it's causing chronic inflammation throughout the body, which leads to diseases, which leads to breakdown, and ultimately their health will demise more and more. So please, I urge you to start looking at the labels of the food that you're feeding your kids. Look at the sugar content, look at the ingredients, And we can really make a difference in staving off so many of these debilitating conditions that are affecting children these days by simply limiting their sugar amount. So I hope that makes sense. I hope you understand the microbiome and how it's so important to keep balance and how lethal sugar is because of that chronic inflammation, that systemic chronic inflammation, and what it can do to children. If you could please pass this on to as many parents as you know so they're aware, they're more cognizant of the sugar intake that their child is consuming. It can really make a world of difference again. And also, if you could like this video, it'll just populate to more and more people. All right, thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.